everybody.
Really.
It's another episode of Tap Talks.
Yay.
Here on the intertubes.
The Tap Talk Network.
On the Tap Talk Network, yes. With your co-hosts, James.
And Bob.
And Bob. And our special guest today is one of my favorite people, Anya Kopischke. Say hi, Anya.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Anya.
Well, thank you for doing this. We'll start with the boilerplate. Where are you, and what are you doing?
Oh, boy. I am in my parents' house, where I grew up mostly in Door County, Wisconsin. It's really nice. I usually live in New York, so it is really nice to be somewhere where I can go outside and not be terrified all the time. And there is like kind of an interesting thing happening because my brother's graduating high school right now. And so we have this weird little nuclear family time right before he goes to college that we never really had. And since I was graduating high school, and by that time Simon was like in 5th grade. So it's nice to like get to know everyone again. In a weird way, where we're definitely getting on each other's nerves, but we're making it through.
Who isn't?
Yeah.
And how long have you been back in Door County?
Since the middle of March. I think Thursday or Friday, the 13th of March, we were starting to lose work in the city. Things were starting to close down. Comedy shows were canceling, which is when I really started to take it seriously. And my mom especially was really pushing for me to come back. And so a couple days later, I did lose my job, and my dad drove out like a maniac from all the way from Wisconsin to New York and drove me back.
We had a meeting with him on his way out, I think.
Oh, really?
I recall that you were on the phone. Yeah, he was on his way to New York, and we were having, I think, an emergency board meeting about what was going to happen.
Right.
And everything did happen very fast. So, yeah, I'm sure he did drive out like a maniac. I know Claire drove out to get Josie, Claire Morgan and Josie Morgan. Josie's going to school, rather, at Columbia.
Yeah.
It was. So, and Isaiah Speps was out there. There's a lot of you.
Yeah.
Out there right now.
But shoulda, coulda, woulda, I guess.
Yeah, I know.
We probably should take a sidebar here for those of you who don't know, because it might sound too much like inside baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Here, but Anya is part of what I like to call the Kopischke dynasty. Our father is Alan Kopischke. His accomplishments are he's as long as my arm: actor, director, professor, administrator, etc. Your mother, Karen Kopischke, is a well-known costume designer from all over the country, and she's done work, of course, here in Door County and for us here at TAP with Steel Magnolias, and then your extended family. You have a long history in. Just your family in show business or in the arts in one way or the other. Your mother's family and your father and your uncles and everything else. So it's pretty I don't know, remarkable is, I don't know if it's the right word. I mean, you had no choice in it. You were born in it. But it's just a remarkable group of people of varying talents and just you're all delightful in your own way, and so we have you, the younger of the Kopischkes.
And full disclosure, Anya's father Alan and Uncle Joel and 2 other Kopischkes, Scott and who?
Oh, I don't know where you're going. But
well, we met. Alan and Joel and I were between the ages of, I think, 10 and 13, doing a community theater production of The Music Man in a south side suburb of Milwaukee in the early mid 70s. Yeah, there were two other Kopischkes in it. I know Scott was one of them, and I can't remember who the other one was. There's 5 of them. Steve, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite a group, and I was very much in awe of your family. My sister and I are or have both been in the show biz, but we're kind of oddities in our family, and it's not like Bob describes it as a dynasty. And Sue and I weren't discouraged from pursuing it, but there wasn't like a family model, coming up in the ranks and, joining the family business. And I don't want to make it sound like it was so easy for you or predestined, Bob used that word. But you are sort of to the manner born. And I said you're one of my favorite people. You've always been so wildly creative, and it's not surprising because I know your family a little bit on your mom's side and a little bit more on your dad's side, but not surprising, but it still is quite remarkable. And you sing, you act, you write, you compose, you direct. You're a good photographer and videographer. I don't know if you put those on the top of your list, but you are really good at it and could do it, for profit if you so desired, I think. What else? Tell us about what you were studying at Bard.
Right.
You went to school in New York. What was that program all about? We touched on it a tiny bit in our Steel Magnolias reunion, but it's all about you now. So tell us about that.
Yeah, unfortunately, all of my plan Bs have always also been in the arts. So
yeah, how about that?
a lot of hope there. But I went to Bard, which, if you haven't heard of it, it's a liberal artsy-fartsy school in the Hudson Valley, and they had this brand new theater devising program. We were just the class after the true guinea pigs of trying it out, and I was interested. I think I was one of the few people who actually went there who was really interested specifically in that part of it, that experimental theater combined with performance art approach, just because it was such a new program. And I had never heard of Bard before. I think I saw the name and was like Shakespeare, and then decided to go there. But they had a lot of really interesting classes that focused more on I think the academic idea of performance and including drag performance in the 80s in the East Village and some of the neo-futurists and just kind of interrogating what performance really meant. And that's what I was excited about because I had all these other interests in other fields of art. I took a lot of film classes, a lot of music classes. I was in the circus. I was just really interested in trying to figure out new ways in which performance could happen. And that program was really good for that. And now I just got accepted into a graduate program at Brooklyn College, which is very similar, but it's the Performance and Interactive Media Arts program. So it's more technology.
Yeah, wow. How long a program is this that you'll be going into?
About 2 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you'll start in the fall if all goes as planned?
Yeah, right now they're saying that things are going to go on as normal as far as they know right now. There's some difference in housing stuff, but I think they're just assuming that they can, because it's pretty small classes. It's a really small program. Mm-hmm. So we'll see,
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a tiny bit about, well, not a tiny bit, let's talk a little bit about your history with TAP. So you were an intern 2 summers in a row.
I was.
But I'm a little vague on exactly what summers those were and how old you were. Were you pre-college in your first internship, or was that your first summer back from Bard?
It was my first summer back from Bard, which is 2014.
And you were the odd one out because that was the summer of many interns. And they were all from, 4 or 5 of them were from Lawrence.
Yes.
where your mother teaches, and then there was you. Did you know any of those people?
No, I think that was my first time meeting all of them. It was, I'm trying to remember they all lived in like one house.
They did.
That was really close to the theater. So
Mhm.
I hung out there a couple times, but yeah, I was like the one person living at home for most of it.
But I remembered that you fit right in and you all got along extremely well.
Yeah.
Is that true, I hope?
Yes, no, they were all great.
And I remember you guys took it upon yourselves. I don't think we instructed you to do it, but you guys filmed a Kickstarter video.
We did, yeah.
Do you remember that? I think you filmed it with the participation of all the rest of the interns. And as I recall, it was really great. I think you guys just heard us, and they were working on a startup theater program. That's how we got most of those interns. So they were really hip to the idea of fundraising, and sometimes when you're strapped for cash and you need money, and in a nonprofit, you have to ask for it. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you all heard us talking at that time how we always needed money. I mean, we still do, but then, literally, if you would have handed us $1, we would have gone and bought all of the props for one show with that dollar. So I think you all heard us talking about that and took it upon yourselves to raise a little cash. It was the most enterprising thing, and it was a really entertaining and fun video. Have you made any videos since then?
Oh, yeah.
What?
Well, Kickstarter and Indiegogo, I am very familiar with. They're mostly how I end up doing most of my projects these days. But film editing ended up being one of my biggest excitements and passions, especially when I started to enter the workforce. And so I've done a lot of different kinds of videos, a lot of artist interviews. I did some of those for the Dorkinetic Arts Festival, which was happening at Bjorklanden for a little bit. I did a few, I was like the assistant editor on a few cool things like for UCB and like Upright Citizens Brigade. I'm sorry, I'm such an insider.
You are.
Upright Citizens Brigade is a very, well, I think it's closing right now. It's very sad, but Amy Poehler and a lot of other comedy giants started this improv school that was kind of the center of a lot of where SNL would pull from for a long time. And they actually just closed recently in New York. There's still a lot of LA. Yeah. I think it was a long time coming. It was, one of those places that started off as something really new and creative and dangerous and fun. And it had been that for a while. It had been at the top for a while. And I think that it's about time that something else grows out of it. And so I think it's time. But I had some fun there doing video editing for comedy sketches.
Yeah.
Taking improv classes for intern hours,
Boy, you're not kidding. All of your plan Bs are in the cards. It's very funny. Okay, so back to your intern summer at TAP. At the end of the summer, you guys all did a capstone performance piece.
Yes.
We've tried to do every summer, but you guys were all so I can't think of the word right now. Sorry. Multifaceted. That wasn't the word I was looking for, but that one definitely do. And, had interests in a lot of different areas of theater and production and etc.
Yeah.
Some years, the interns didn't want to set foot on a stage. It wasn't anything that was any part of their experience. And, they only took the acting classes because to be a stage manager, you have to, or something. Right. So we didn't always have them, but we tried to have them every year that it seemed, useful and that people would get a kick out of it. Well, that one was just amazing. There was a piece in it, a couple pieces in it that you wrote. Yes?
Yeah.
Like 10-minute plays.
Yeah. There is also an Exquisite Corpse, which is a a play where you write a little bit, like a page, and you leave just one line for the next person to continue. And me and Kip and Sarah did that. And then I think we also had our own projects that we presented. And then Kelsey shaved her head on stage while singing. Actually, I think a song I wrote. I completely forgot about that. That was such
I believe it was.
really
It was shocking.
rock star performance.
Totally.
But you were the one who shaved her head, right? Yes. I mean, I got to tell you, that was one of the most astounding things I've ever seen in my life. Of course, didn't expect it. And she has such beautiful, she has beautiful hair.
Yeah.
And she was singing. She has a beautiful voice. And then you were behind her with your shears or whatever you were using. And suddenly that hair was coming off. And Kelsey, as if she was just sitting, waiting for the bus or something, and didn't really faze her, just sang beautifully. And you not only gave her this haircut, but it was a really good haircut, as I remember.
I did a terrible job. I think she went to a barber and got it fixed up after I did it.
Well, at least initially, it didn't look like it would be. You would think it would just be all mangled, and I'm sure there were ends that needed to be straightened and whatever. But still, theatrically, it was jaw dropping.
Thank you.
It was.
Perhaps our perception of the quality of the cut job was clouded by our dropped jaws.
And yeah, it was surprising and delightful, and and everything that theater should be, all in about 5 minutes. It really wasn't very long. We want to ask. We usually ask at the top of these interviews a couple of questions.
Oh yeah, I forgot this one. Part of it might be obvious, but go for it.
Yeah, well, we might have touched on it already, but the first is just, what was the spark for you that got you interested in the arts or in theater or any part of the arts at all? Was there an inciting incident for you?
Yeah. Sorry. Continue.
Oh yeah, the second part of that question is, and then when did you make the decision to actually think that you're going to do this professionally, that you wanted to do this, so it's beyond just the spark, but something you wanted to take to a different level? But anyway, what was that spark?
Well, to get to that spark, we have to take a little trip down memory lane to when I was 7 years old.
Sure.
And I saw my dad in a production of David Ives' All in the Timing, I'm pretty sure, because there was like some cool bug costumes, I remember. I think it was the Mayfly scene. And I used to see him perform when I was little, and I'd usually get very upset because he would be treated unfairly, and I'd start crying. Mostly sheer madness was very upsetting because he was always the murderer at the end. So was taken to jail, and that was traumatizing. But All in the Timing was a lot of fun because there were bugs, and I got to wear my Bumblebee costume in the audience, and they had those like big blow up couches as part of the set, which I still is one of my biggest inspirations, having a blow up couch on stage. And I got to go up after the show and like play around with them, and I think that was the spark. It sounds a little corny, I guess, but really soon after that, I was interested in auditioning for children's theater at First Stage in Milwaukee. And I couldn't even read, but I'd watch The Little Princess and memorize her monologue. And it never really felt like a choice after that. I realized looking back at, there's a lot of things I could have done. But it just, after that first taste of it, and after I started doing children's theater, I couldn't really imagine myself doing anything else.
So it's really all in one.
Yeah.
I mean, once it started, it never stopped. For you. And then, when did you come to Door County? When did your family move to Door County?
We moved up here, I think when I was going into 7th grade, and Simon was just a wee little baby. I don't even know what year that was, like 2000 something. And my dad was working at Peninsula Players, and we lived there for the summer before we had a house. And they were doing Little Shop of Horrors, which is my favorite musical, and I would always buy chocolate on my mom's tab at the canteen and like every night. It wasn't healthy.
Well, you had all that activity at First Stage, and
How long did you do that? That whole time until you moved?
Yeah, and a little bit after I moved, I think they started an overnight program like a year or something after I moved. I did that a couple years.
What, like a camp?
Yeah, it was at Carthage. It was like a musical theater company.
Oh, fantastic! Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. First Stage was very, very dear to me all of growing up, and I missed it a lot when I moved up here.
It's a fantastic training program.
It really is.
So,
It's really
so
great.
what happened after you moved up here then? You'd gotten a big taste of working with First Stage and doing all those activities, and then suddenly you're in Door County,
Right.
and the opportunities aren't as forthcoming. So how did you cope with that?
I missed it tremendously. I think I took a lot of it out on just being like a really annoying theater kid in my class, and knowing more than everyone else about musical theater. And then at a certain point, I just wanted more things to be happening, and so later in high school, I started directing my own plays and directing plays that I forced my friends to write. And I ended up starting a scholarship that I think is still available. If anyone from Gibraltar is listening, I think there's still money here as far as I know. But it's just a fund for students who want to start their own creative project and be entrepreneurs about an artistic project. And basically you can take the money that you need to make it happen and then hopefully donate back the proceeds. So it's kind of
Oh, wonderful.
That's amazing. That's truly amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about how you came back to TAP the second summer. Again, we touched on this in the Steel Mags reunion video that we did, but how I recall it is that we had chosen the show Steel Magnolias, which is a really wonderful ensemble tour de force for 6 incredible female actors of a wide range of ages.
Yeah.
And there's the youngest one, Annelle, who comes in and is frankly a device so that all the characters can be introduced. I assume it's a great thing. She doesn't know anybody, so the role is kind of a device, but it sure doesn't seem like one as written. The first time you see the play, you don't just think, "Oh, look, a plot device," and exposition, and here it comes. No, it's just kind of great that we get to know the town through her eyes, and nobody is really the central character protagonist, possibly the mother, since we meet her very early and she kind of has the last beat of the play. But if you see the thing through anybody's eyes, it's the character that you played, Annelle, because they're all new to us and they were all new to you. And as you were, amused, bemused, and frightened of them in all of their glory and other things, so were we. So it's a big responsibility for this character, which seems like, a soubrette or ingenue. If it was a musical, she would be the cute young thing, but it's just not that. It's so much more. And from the get, I really wanted you to do it because you were like the actual age of the character. It didn't have to be somebody older who could be trusted to make smart choices. You just always made smart choices as long as I've known you. And, the trap with young actors is they either just do something like it's cookie cutter because they think, oh, you have to do it like thus and such. So they try to be, it's a homogenized kind of performance because they want to be like anybody else who ever did the role. Then there's the other trap of a young actor, which is to make wild, wacky choices, just to be different and original. Which is the opposite end of the same thing. And it's equally wrong because you can't just do anything for the sake of being original. It doesn't work that way. But you never make the obvious choice unless it's the only choice. You always make really exciting, interesting, intelligent choices, not just cookie cutter or bad young actor choices. And I really wanted you to do it. And I remember asking you about it because I thought I could lure you back for another internship. And, tap being tap, there's a certain number of equity roles, certain number of regular professional company roles, and then a certain number of intern roles. And we have to fill them that way because that's the only way we can afford to do a play with more than 3 people in it, quite frankly. And it still is sort of true. So we knew this would be the intern role, and I wanted to hire you back for a second internship, which has happened, but seldom. You were one of the few. So I asked you about it, and you were your answer endeared you to me because you said, well, do you have a PDF of the script? Can you send it to me? I want to read the play. And not just trusting that I was picking a really good role for you, although I was, of course, but that you had to make sure for yourself. And I didn't think, you were being cheeky or precocious or anything. I thought it was just really smart. And after reading it, I recall you accepting another internship really graciously and doing some grunt work that summer, knowing that you would have, this wonderful time sort of right in the middle of the summer. You would be living in this beauty parlor, location of Steel Mags. Am I remembering that correctly? And do you want to add anything to that? You were just great in that show. You all were, but you were just so good.
Oh, you're too kind. That does sound like a really smart and gracious way for me to answer you, and I don't remember any.
You don't remember any of that?
No. I do. My dad always instilled in me. He used to talk about doing, and now it's escaping me, but that really famous Christmas movie, It's a Wonderful Life. And he would never watch the movie whenever he was playing that role. So I think I had a bit of that instilled in me. I wasn't good at copying people. I've never been a good imitator. So I didn't want to see how other people did it. I just wanted to connect to the character. And I think reading the script, I really did just connect to her. And that's why I wanted to do it. And what was so fun about that play is that you could connect to every character on a different level. They were so different from each other, and yet there was such visible heart in all of them. It's still one of my favorite plays. It's just so simply strong and hopeful and tragic at the same time without trying too hard with anything. I was really happy to do that, and I feel really lucky that you were able to grab me for it.
Oh, well, I was thrilled. Yeah, it is a terrific play. It's I like to call it a slice of life play, and you're right about the hope that it offers, but it does it without being a Hallmark card. It can be played as one, and sometimes is sometimes misperceived that way, as are several plays that I won't mention but come to mind. That but if you don't look at it in that fashion, they actually have rather profound and basic things to say about life and how to live it, and they're not sugar-coated. And you know what? When things are awful, like right now, you have to find a way to get up in the morning. You have to find a way to get up again. When you lose something, somebody that you care for, you have to find a way to go on if you want to function at all. I think all of us do want to. Certainly we're successful in widely divergent, at widely divergent levels. But it's the power of theater, I think, and much more so than being at a movie where it's the exact same thing happens every time. A very wise theater professor once told me a movie is much more like a novel than it is like theater, because it already exists, and you experience something that is fixed in space and time. The theater is not fixed in space and time. We have the same lines and we have the same blocking, hopefully, all the time. But it's always a little bit different. And I think that's the power of being in a room with other people experiencing the same thing you are, from people up on stage whose delivery of this experience, it's shared. It's not even a delivery, but it only happens once that all those people are in the same room together. And, so that tells me how to direct a play like that, that the people are all bringing their own thing to it. You don't have to hit them over the head with a lesson. And on our reunion, I said one of my favorite lines in the play was "Life goes on," and it's a cliche, but it isn't when it's said in the play. And if you don't know the play, sorry, but it's a line that comes up early and then comes up again later, and it is a lesson. And for those of us who are alive, life does go on, and you have to find a way to live it. Boy, this is getting awfully philosophical.
Well, what I was going to add, just what I really admire in you and any really good actor, is the ability to live in the moment and to listen well. An actor doesn't act; an actor reacts. And unless you're a good listener, unless you can settle in and just live in that moment, and that is something that usually you don't find much in young actors at all. I mean, it's something I think it's just instinctive with you. And for a lot of us, that's something that takes time to develop, and you learn as you go along. And then other people are just, gifted with this ability, right away. And I think you're one of them. So and I wanted to get to. I'm sorry, I'm blanking. Oh yes. We talked a little bit about Bard and your experiences there. But when you left Bard, was it a foregone conclusion you were going to stay in New York by that point?
I think so. Being in New York was always a dream of mine, as corny as that is. And I think that I was drawn to Bard because it had this close connection to the city. And so by the time I was graduating, most of my connections were there, most of my friends were moving there, and that was what I had always wanted.
Anya, how far away is Bard from the city?
It's about 90-minute train ride.
Oh, not bad.
Yeah.
So you could make a lot of trips while you were at school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
good.
we had a few even programs, part of class, that we would go down to BAM and see something. Mm-hmm. It was nothing like living there. I mean, living there was a whole another culture change. I had a culture shock going to Bard. I had a culture shock going to New York.
How was your first night in New York? Tell us about that. This is a story we'd love to hear from everybody who has it to tell.
Mine was terrible.
Mine was worse.
Mine was terrible too.
Oh, please.
I didn't have all my furniture there, so I was sleeping on the futon that my roommates had brought. And I was I forget exactly why this happened, but I guess my roommate wasn't going to be there when I was moving in. And so she had left the key in an open mailbox. And when I got there, it was stolen, obviously. I don't know why neither of us thought about that. So I called the super, and he opened it, but I was just sitting there knowing that someone who knew exactly which apartment I lived in had the key.
Dear.
They got it from the mailbox.
Oh, maybe yours is the worst.
It was I had to like call a locksmith in the morning, and by some grace of God, he didn't rip me off. Because every other locksmith story I hear, they're like, okay, I kind of broke the door, and now can give me $200.
Oh, they have you over a barrel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Usually it's in the middle of the night when you've come back a little, inebriated from a party and you've lost your keys.
There's breaks in the lock or something.
Well, you had a lot of, you worked at a few places right after Bard.
Yeah.
I believe you worked in one of my favorite theaters in New York, the New York Theater Workshop.
Yeah. I worked a lot at the Theater Workshop. They're great.
I love that place. Just talk about that. Some of the places you worked between Bard and now.
Yeah, I've been working predominantly in theater tech, which was never something I really considered. As I said before, all my backup plans were like creative, artistic stuff. And as close as theater tech is to, it is an art, and as close as it is to like theater, it is much more practical than anything I had considered. And so I was working at New York Theater Workshop as a sound engineer, St. Anne's Warehouse a little bit, Abrams Arts Center, which does a lot of really cool dance and community outreach in the Lower East Side. And the last year I was at New York Live Arts, which is Bill T. Jones' theater company. And I really had the worst imposter syndrome ever. I had no business doing any of that for these theaters I admired, but people are so kind, especially in those more like downtown theaters, off Broadway theaters. There's a really great tech theater community, and people just helped me.
These are fantastic places for you to be in any capacity. It's so exciting.
Yeah, it was incredible, and I think part of what made it so fantastic is that I loved everything they were putting on. I was connected to the art that they were doing. It wasn't just a job. I felt a part of the process, which is, why it was fun and why I agreed to do a second internship at TAP is, as if you feel like an integral part of the wheel, you're using that creative muscle, and you feel important and like you've created something at the end, because it's a group effort. It always is. So.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
that's great.
That's what we like to, tell any interns coming in. That's what we have to offer. We're not a huge theater with a lot of bells and whistles and everything else. That everybody has their hand in a lot of things, and everybody matters. What they're able to bring to the table and contribute to the whole makes a huge difference to us in a small company. And
nobody's a cog in the wheel. Everybody has to pull their weight, and we've been really lucky that in getting interns who were up to the task and excited by it, and really were able to contribute. And you did in so many ways, besides videography and acting. I remember constantly asking you your opinion on the look of something, the sound of something, and wanting to hear it. Folks, I want to be Anya Kopischke when I grow up, whatever that is. Yeah, you've always been kind of one of my heroes, just in your bravery and and not cheekiness, but all the wonderful things about youth and the energy that comes with that, but being smart enough to channel it in really great and creative ways. I just think you're great. It's almost time to wrap up this conversation, which has gone by so fast. My gosh. But we want to know if you have anything you'd like to say to our viewers. And we do have some viewers. People are actually watching our program, which is great. Yeah.
Good. I think this just this time right now is so, it gives you a lot of time to reflect. And I don't want to think of it as like an artist retreat or anything that's good, because obviously we're all in really different, tricky situations. But it has been hopeful to see how creatives are being, and trying to, like TAP has, like find ways to continue to connect to their audience and talk about what matters to them. And even the schools who are doing these Zoom plays, or radio plays. I'm involved in a lot of podcasts that are working on development for theater artists. And I do think that, none of it is the same as having that specific theater experience where it'll never happen again and you're a community in a room. But it has been really inspiring to see how everyone is taking this challenge creatively and trying to still make something beautiful out of it. And so thank you so much for having me on one of your beautiful, creative, problem-solving journeys.
Oh, our desire to connect has not dimmed.
No.
So we're finding ways to do it until we can have the full Monty again, of all being together in the same place. We have to thank our sponsor, who also understands that this is one of the ways we can keep going with what we do at TAP, and they are an anonymous friend of the theater who are helping to make these broadcasts happen. So thank you, sponsor.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you, friend. And Bob, you may push the button and we'll say goodbye.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Anya. Really appreciate you being here. And we'll see everybody next time on TAP Talks. So long.
Yeah.